I want to start by saying this: I live a pretty straight-edge lifestyle. No drinking, no drugs, no late-night delusions. What I saw last New Year's Eve was real. And to this day, I have no explanation for it. I live on the outskirts of a quiet, southern town. You know the type: small, tight-knit, nothing too remarkable. But some of my friends live deeper into the woods, only reachable by long, winding back roads that feel like they lead to nowhere. One of them, Darren, lives in an upscale neighborhood hidden deep in those woods. Every New Year's Eve, his family throws a big party, and every year, I make the trip out there. This past New Year's Eve, I left home a little later than usual. The cold had finally set in after an unseasonably warm December, and the roads were eerily empty. No streetlights, no passing cars, just my headlights carving a path through the dark, tree-lined road. Normally, I hate using my high beams, but that night, they were a necessity. About halfway there, my lights caught something, a flash of white among the trees. As I got closer, I saw her. A woman, standing completely still at the edge of the road. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't moving. Just standing. Her back was to the trees, her head slightly tilted downward. She wore a long, white gown, far too thin for the freezing temperature. I kept my brights on, but the glare off her dress made it impossible to see her face. I passed her quickly, my grip tightening on the wheel. Should I stop? Ask if she needed help? But something in my gut told me to keep driving. Then I checked my rearview mirror. She had turned. Not walking, not moving, just turned. Facing me. Watching. I floored it the rest of the way, my heart hammering in my chest. By the time I reached Darren's house, the warmth and noise of the party felt like stepping into another world. I tried to shake off the unease. Maybe she was just someone from the neighborhood. Maybe I was overreacting. I wish I had trusted my instincts. The night went on as usual. Drinks, music, laughter. We watched the ball drop in New York, and then again for our time zone. Slowly, people started filtering out. I stayed behind to help clean up, like I always do. By the time I left, my car was the only one in the driveway. That's when I noticed the low tire pressure warning. My car is old, so it doesn't specify which tire is low, just a generic warning. The cold air had probably messed with the pressure, like it always does. No big deal, I thought. I'd make it home. Then I remembered her. Was she still out there? Had anyone else seen her? A part of me considered taking the longer route home, safer roads, less darkness. But I was tired, and the detour would add 20 extra minutes. I just wanted to get home. So I made a choice. I wish I hadn't. Not even 5 minutes down that cursed road, I felt it, something was wrong. The car groaned, dragging against the pavement. A grinding noise echoed through the silence. My car rolled to a stop. I held my breath. The road was empty. No houses. No cell service. Just me and the endless stretch of blackness. Against every ounce of my better judgment, I got out to check the tires. I turned on my phone flashlight and crouched down. One glance and my stomach dropped. All 4 tires, shredded. Not punctured. Not flat. Torn apart. The kind of damage no normal road hazard could do. Then, the wind stopped. The branches overhead stilled. The distant chirps and rustles of the forest faded into silence. An unnatural, suffocating silence. Then, a twig snapped. Somewhere just beyond the tree line. I turned off my flashlight instantly, my breath caught in my throat. Leaves rustled, slow and deliberate. Something, or someone, was moving out there. Watching. Then I heard it. A voice. A woman's voice. Soft. Gentle. Too close. I see you. My blood turned to ice. The words weren't angry, weren't shouted, just stated. As if she were smiling. Another rustle. Then another whisper. "Can you see me?" My fingers fumbled, shaking, as I turned my flashlight back on and aimed it toward the trees. She was standing right there. No longer on the roadside. No longer distant. Just a few feet away. Her gown, dirty, stained. Her skin, deathly pale. Her gray, tangled hair draped over bony shoulders. But her face. Half of it was gone. Torn away, leaving only raw, jagged remnants. Yet she still seemed to be grinning. I didn't think. I just ran. I ran like my life depended on it. Because maybe it did. I didn't go toward the shack, I knew that had to be hers. Instead, I sprinted straight back to Darren's house. I didn't stop until I was pounding on the door, screaming for them to let me in. Darren's mother answered, startled by my terror. She pulled me inside, locking the door behind me. Between ragged breaths, I told them everything. Darren's father called the police and a tow truck while I collapsed onto their couch, still shaking. I thought the nightmare was over. I was wrong. Sometime during the night, I woke up. A noise, soft, rhythmic. Tapping. From the window. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. But I checked the clock. 3:14 a.m. Then. "I see you." The same voice. Right outside the second-story window. I never looked. I never moved until morning. When the sun finally rose, Darren's family checked outside. No footprints in the frost. But there, just below the window, was a single item left in the grass. A rusted knife. The police searched the shack later that day. No one was living there. But the surrounding woods? They found something. Carcasses. Gutted animals. Bones. Scattered, rotting remains. The woman? They never found her. No trace. No explanation. I don't know who, or what, she was. I don't know why she targeted me. But this year, I'm still going to Darren's party. I just won't be driving alone. And I will be taking the long way home. When I was 26, I took a trip to San Diego via plane. I stayed with my friend for a few days and booked a late flight back home. My flight landed at midnight, and by the time I reached the ground transportation pickup point, it was around 12:30 a.m. I waved down a random taxi in the designated section. The driver, a middle-aged man in his mid-40s with tired eyes and a stubbly face, offered to take me home for $30. It was a great deal compared to Uber, so I agreed. He stepped out, ready to help with my bag, but I told him I was fine. Instead, he lifted my bag onto the seat beside me, directly behind him. I sat diagonally across from him as he pulled up the directions to my apartment. With no traffic at this hour, it would be about a 30-minute drive. As we got on the highway, I caught him staring at me through the rearview mirror. Once. Twice. The second time, he spoke. "Where are you coming from?" "San Diego," I answered casually. "Oh, very nice," he replied, his tone unreadable. Then, after a brief silence, "What were you doing there?" "Visiting a friend. Is your friend as pretty as you?" His voice had an unsettling playfulness. I forced a small laugh, brushing off the comment, but something about it felt wrong. It was too early in the ride for this kind of talk. My instincts buzzed with discomfort. "What's a pretty girl like you doing traveling alone?" he continued. "Well, I wasn't alone. I was visiting my friend," I said, keeping my tone light but firm. "Still, you're flying by yourself," he countered. "We can agree to disagree." I kept my answer short. He laughed, but something in his chuckle felt forced, like he was testing me. Then I noticed something odd. We were approaching my exit, but he wasn't slowing down. My heart rate picked up. "Hey, this is my exit," I said, my voice sharper now. He didn't respond. The exit passed by in a blur. "That was my exit," I said louder, panic creeping into my voice. He glanced at me through the mirror. "Sorry, I'll catch the next one." I tried to see his GPS, but the angle was all wrong. Something about this didn't feel like a mistake. The next exit was coming up. I sat up straighter, my hands gripping my bag. "Get off here. Now." Again, that slight hesitation. Then, he flicked on his blinker and exited. In the mirror, I caught a glimpse of his face. Annoyance. Frustration. But why? Then, out of nowhere. "Do you have a boyfriend?" I answered instantly. "Yes. He lives with me." A pause. I could feel his eyes on me. Then, an even weirder question. "What's his name?" The air in the cab felt suffocating. Why did he care? Why did he need details? That was it. I was done playing along. I grabbed my AirPods, pretending to put on music, but they were dead. I just needed him to stop talking. I texted my family and shared my location, a nervous lump forming in my throat. We reached a red light. I looked up, his eyes were locked onto me in the mirror again. This time, the stare was different. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't playfulness. It was something darker. The light turned green. He didn't move. I forced my voice to stay steady. "The light's green." Only then did he start driving. My phone buzzed, my brother had responded. "Get out of the car if you feel unsafe." We hit another red light. To my right, I spotted a parked police car in an empty lot. Decision made. I grabbed my bag, slid the van door open. The driver barked, "What are you doing?" and hit the power button to close it, but I forced it open and bolted toward the cop car. The taxi driver didn't chase me. He just drove away. Red flag. The officer noticed me immediately. As I reached the car, out of breath, I spilled everything in a rush. The driver. The questions. The missed exit. The eerie stare. Thankfully, the cop believed me and gave me a ride home. By the time I walked into my apartment, exhaustion hit me like a wave. I barely had the energy to brush my teeth before collapsing into bed. Then, a knock at the door. My stomach dropped. I froze, listening. The knocks persisted. Slow. Deliberate. Minutes passed. Silence. Then, more knocks. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Eventually, they stopped. I barely slept that night. The next day at work, my neighbor George called me. "Hey, your dad was at your apartment earlier, trying to get in. He didn't have a key, so he was checking the windows." My blood ran cold. My dad's at work. He never came by. A silence stretched between us before George finally said, "Then who the hell was that?" I told my dad everything. He wanted me to come home for a few nights, and I agreed. After work, I packed a bag, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. That's when I heard it. A creak. A shift in weight against the wooden floor. I stopped breathing. My eyes darted down the hallway, to the spare bedroom. A voice. Low. Unfamiliar. "I wasn't going to hurt you." An arm swung into view from behind the wall. I ran. Faster than I ever had before, bolting for the front door. I screamed, pounding on George's door as hard as I could. He and his wife came rushing out. I begged them not to go inside. We called 911 and waited. The police searched the apartment. The back sliding door was open. The intruder was gone. I had no taxi record. No license plate. Just a yellow minivan and a man's face burned into my memory. I stayed with my parents for a week. When I finally moved back, I installed cameras, got a taser, and swore off taxis for good. To this day, I wonder, was that even a real taxi? Or had I unknowingly stepped into something far more sinister?